In the last session, we have discussed the roles and responsibilities of product owner. Who is product owner and what will be the roles and responsibilities of product owner? If you see the terminologies in Agile methodology, iteration duration is called as sprint duration in Agile methodology. Each module in Agile will be called as a user stories, and each iteration is called as a sprint. Who is a product owner? So whoever is having all the all the sprints, whoever is holding all the sprints which has to be developed, that particular person is called as a product owner. The product, all sprint who will be having what actually the software has to be developed, what actually the software has to be developed, what are their requirements, all the requirements they'll be holding. So that person will be, he or she will be called as product owner. So what will be the roles and responsibilities of product owner? They defines the user stories, and they are going to be prioritize them in a sense. So which user story has to be developed in the first sprint? Like in first sprint, we'll be having some modules to be developed. Sorry, that is user stories has to be developed. Which user stories has to be developed in the first sprint? And based on the priority of them, they'll be defining the priority. Sprint duration 1 to 4 weeks will call. So usually either 2 weeks or 3 weeks will be having the sprint duration. We have to fix for one particular point. So all the sprints will be having equal duration. All the sprints will be having equal duration. The client or the customer will be considered as the product owner. The client or customer will be considered as product owner. They will be take care of the project deadlines, by which time we have to complete it, that and all they'll be take care. Okay, this is the what are the the roles and responsibilities of product owner. Next, what is a scrum? What is scrum? Whatever it may be the development product, that product has to be divided into small chunks. That is nothing but small parts. That is nothing but small parts. Each part isn't ready to use for the customer. See, what I would like to say here, now, whatever the part we are developing, if we are deploying that, end users has to be used that. So customer, if we are giving that to the customer innocence, what the customer will do with that? So they have to make use of it. They have to make use of it. In that way, it should be helpful for the customer. Innocence, end users has to be used that. Development product should be divided into smaller parts. That is nothing but chunks, small pieces. Each part is in ready to use for customer. That should be ready for customer. Next, we have product backlog. So what is meant by product backlog? What the product backlog will contains? It contains all the user stories, implements for all the sprints. Contains all user stories, implements for all the sprints. implements for the sprints. Next, sprint backlog. What the sprint backlog will contains? It contains the user stories implement in the only current sprint. That is only one sprint, the present sprint, we can say. Product backlog will contains all the user stories which has to be implemented. The sprint backlog will contains the user stories implement in the only one sprint. Implement in the only one sprint. Contains user stories implements in the only one sprint. So we'll be having the Scrum Master here. What is the roles and responsibilities of Scrum Master? We'll see. Scrum Master. Who will be Scrum Master? See, what will be the roles and responsibilities of Scrum Master? In the development company, the team leader or the project manager will be act as a Scrum Master. What will be their roles and responsibilities? They will take care of his or her team. Take care about his or her team. Removes miscommunications in the team. What kind of miscommunications will be arised here? What kind of miscommunications will arise here? That all we'll discuss. So Scrum Master is going to be protects his or her team. Their team they are going to be protect. And they'll be responsible for implementing the Agile in effective manner. Effective way. Not in a technical. See what they are going to be consider this. See, removes miscommunications in the team. We are saying that in Agile methodology, one product is developing innocence, one user story is developing innocence. The team will be having the developers, testers, and everyone will be included. The team will be having developers, testers, everyone. So first, who is the owner of user stories? Developer is the owner of user stories. See, who is the owner of user stories? Developer is the owner of user stories. Developer is the owner of user stories. Scrum team will contains developers plus QA. So we can also call as test engineers or testers, quality analyst. These people, Scrum team will be consists of developers and QA team, that is quality analyst, or we can also say that as a test engineers. See, sprint planning or what are the things we are having in the Scrum? We'll see. Scrum methodology. What will be comes under this Scrum methodology? Product backlog. So that what we have discussed, product backlog, and next sprint backlog, or we can also say that as a sprint planning. Sprint planning, sprint backlog, or sprint planning. And there will be Scrum meetings, or we can also say that as a DSC, daily stand up calls. DSC will call in shortcut, daily stand up calls. Demos and review meetings. Retrospective meetings. So this and all will be happening. So what is meant by product backlog that we have discussed in detail. Now, sprint planning or sprint backlog, what will be happens here? See, user story assignments will be happen. User points assignment to the user stories, hours allocation. This all will be happens under this. Sir, what will be happening here? User stories. US or user stories. Assignments. Who is going to be assigned these user stories to the sprint? Product owner. So in the sprint planning, the Scrum Master is going to be conduct the sprint planning. So what are the user stories we have in it? What are the user stories we have in it? So that assignment, we will be getting the documents. We will be getting the documents, that is user stories consists. So that one, we have to give the user points to the assignments, to the user stories. User stories. And how many hours we have to allocate for that? Hours allocation. See, let me consider the sprint is having 2 weeks of time, and so our sprint is having 2 weeks duration. 2 weeks duration is common for all the sprints, let me consider, and each sprint will be having 5 user stories. So it is not fixed for 5 user stories, that may be having more also, that will come to know. So in our project, how many user stories will be having in each sprint and what will be the duration and all. Now, in the 2 weeks of time, 2 weeks we are not going to be develop this. 2 weeks we are not going to be develop this. I mean, 2 weeks we are not going to be work on sprint. 2 weeks in a sense, in that we'll be having 10 working days only. 2 weeks in a sense, we'll be having 10 working days. So in a week, we'll be working for 5 days only. In a week, we'll be working for 5 days only. So like that, if you consider in the day one, only 3 hours approximately. This is approximately I'm giving 3 hours duration will be allocated for sprint planning. What is the user stories assigned? What will be the user points given to that, and how much of hours we have to allocate for that. So what is meant by user points? So whatever the user stories we have received, based on that, we need to give the rating. We need to give the rating. That is points we have to give. Points we have to give. Those points will be like a Fibonacci series, like 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Like that only we need to give the rating. That is, that rating will be called as user points. On what basis we are going to give the user points? Complexity. Based on the complexity of the user stories we have to give. Both the developers has to give and the test engineers has to give. Everyone has to give the uniform rating. If suppose one of the developer has given 3 rating and everyone in the team developers has given 2 rating, and in the same way test engineers are going to be give the rating, everyone has given the user points as 2, one person has given as a 3 or 1, let me consider. So then what we have to do in this particular case, the scrum master is going to be discussed with that particular developer and the test engineer. So to avoid the miscommunications, their role is to avoid the miscommunications in the team. They are going to be discussed with that particular developer and test engineer why you have given this particular rating, and the developer or test engineer, they are going to give their own um, views why they have given that, and the scrum master is going to be give the explanation about the particular user stories. In this particular user story, we have to develop more, or we need to test carefully because banking things will be there or some other things will be there, like so and so. The scrum master is going to be explain them, and they will be coming to the uniform user points. Uniform user points, that is the purpose of scrum master, to avoid the miscommunications in the team. And they will come to the uniform user points, and they will be starting working on the sprint. So this and all will be happen in the day one, first 3 hours, in the first 3 hours only. So that is what we have to know. User points. User points. It will be based on complexity of the user stories. It will be based on Fibonacci series. Like we'll be having 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Maximum this one only we are going to give the rating. Next 21 like this and all. So 13 rating in a sense extreme. If you feel extreme, we have to give 13. 8 is maximum. More than 8, we won't get the user points. This method also called as poker card method. So by using this poker card method only, we are going to give the rating. So 13 is extreme, 8 is maximum. 13 is extreme, 8 is maximum in the user points. Yeah. So in the first day, sprint planning will be there. And from next day only, we will be having the scrum meetings. So we are talking about scrum meetings and daily stand-up calls. Scrum meetings or daily stand-up calls. So what we are going to be discuss here, daily status of team. Majorly, we are going to be discuss daily status of team. What we did yesterday, how much percentage we have completed, and what we are going to be do today. What you have done yesterday, what is your plan today? What you have done yesterday. So I have done 40% of task yesterday. Remaining I am going to be work today. So just simple status we are going to be provide. What is your plan for today? This we are going to be discuss. See, we are going to be say that complete today we are going to be work. Today completely we are not going to be work on this. Today completely we are not going to be work on this. So some 8 hours, 9 hours, so maximum. So within that only we have to complete our work. So that much work or that much task only we have to commit for. That much work or that much task only we have to commit for. These are the things will be happening in the scrum meetings. And about the demos or review meetings, retrospective meetings, that we will discuss in the coming session.